The marketplace was alive with the clang of chains and the rough laughter of merchants who thrived on the misery of others. The air thick with dust and the heavy scent of sweat, desperation and greed, and as the sun scorched overhead, it illuminated rows upon rows of cages filled with men whose eyes carried more scars than their bodies, beaten down, labeled as beasts, sold as nothing more than tools of violence or entertainment, and yet among them was one who stood differently, taller, broader, his body scarred but unbowed, his eyes like molten steel though dulled by the cruelty of captivity. And it was him they called Savage, a name spat with derision by the crowd that gathered to mock, pointing fingers at the man who had been shackled, dragged through countless arenas, forced to fight for survival. A man whose reputation preceded him as merciless, untamable, beyond redemption. But what they failed to see was the humanity flickering beneath the mask, the echo of a soul that refused to die, and as the auctioneer bellowed, dragging his name across the square, here he is, the Savage, the one who crushed 10 men with his bare hands, a beast in the shape of a man who dares to claim him. The crowd roared back with jeers and laughter, treating him like an animal, like an object of fear and curiosity, until a voice, clear, soft yet commanding, broke through the noise, a voice that silenced even the most raucous hecklers, a voice that carried something the marketplace had not heard in years, compassion, and that voice belonged to her. Cloaked in a simple dress, though her presence carried authority, her eyes fixed not on the chains, not on the scars, but on the man himself. And with a strength that made hardened traders falter, she stepped forward and cried, "Don't hurt him. I'll buy him," she said. "Call him Savage all you want, but I see a man worth saving." The silence that followed was deafening, and even Savage himself lifted his gaze, disbelief flickering in his eyes, for no one had spoken for him in years. No one had seen him as anything more than the monster they painted, and yet here she was, a stranger with fire in her spirit, offering not only to purchase his freedom, but to defend his humanity before a crowd that thrived on cruelty. The road away from the marketplace stretched beneath the dimming sky, dust rising with each step of the carriage wheels, and inside sat the woman whose voice had silenced a square of cruelty. Her hands steady, though her heart raced, for beside her, bound yet silent, sat the man the world called Savage, his massive frame hunched forward, chains rattling faintly with every movement, his eyes fixed on the ground as though afraid to meet hers. Not because of fear of her, but because of disbelief that such a thing could be real, that someone would choose him not as a weapon but as a person. And the silence between them was heavy, thick with questions unasked and truths buried, until at last she spoke. Her tone neither commanding nor pitying, but soft, deliberate, like water flowing gently over stone. "Do you have a name?" And for a moment he did not answer. The word caught in his throat. Because he had not been asked that in so long, he wondered if the sound of it would even feel real. And when he finally spoke, his voice was hoarse, rough like gravel scraped against iron. "Once I did," he whispered, his gaze lifting just slightly, the chains clinking as his hands flexed. "But they took it from me. They called me Savage until I forgot the rest." Her eyes softened, not with pity, but with recognition of pain, and she leaned forward, determination sparking in her as she replied, "Then we will find it again. You are not savage to me. You are a man, and no man should lose himself to the names the cruel give him." His chest rose with a shaky breath, something between anger and hope warring within him. For her words pressed against walls he had built high and strong to protect what remained of himself. Walls of fury, mistrust, and silence. And yet her voice slipped through cracks he had not known still existed, stirring something he thought long dead, faith, fragile and trembling but still alive. The carriage jolted as it reached the edges of the town, the shouts and laughter of the marketplace fading into the distance, and for the first time in years, Savage, no, the man, looked forward instead of backward, though he still carried the weight of scars carved into his body and spirit. But as the woman sat beside him, unafraid, he began to wonder if perhaps he was more than the beast they made him believe, and as the night deepened and stars scattered across the sky, he closed his eyes for the first time not in fear of sleep, but in the faint shadow of peace, knowing that though he was still bound in chains, something inside him had begun to break free.